Peace in our human family. Volume and unity. Divine light shining individually. Collectively transforming community. Peace in our human family.
One love, one growth, as above, so below. Feel the pain in my soul, the red pill dissolved. Organized, no matter the cost. Politicians start wars, they don't fight, they sit in the poor. And nothing lasts forever as long as we stay together. Give hell to the masses, watch the unity rapture. This is for the kids and the culture. It's one love, one growth, one light warriors. The kids and the culture. Everybody out there out on the podcast world, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Google, Apple. Shout out to everybody on Apple. I see that majority of the people around the world listen to me on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much. I'm a Tidal guy, so I'm not really into the Apple part, but that's all right. Can I get a sponsorship from Tidal, please? I have a special guest, Janaiah. I said your name right?
It's Janaiah.
Janaiah, I apologize. Janaiah, welcome to the Jabbar VOC podcast. VOC podcast. Thank you so much for rescheduling with me. I've been having some issues, but we're back in the limelight. Just quick shout outs. Everybody check out Elias Ali. Jesus, he's gonna kill me for saying his name wrong. Elias Ali new album's coming out on November 20th, 29th. And this podcast will be out in December, so it's already gonna be out. So check that out. Elias Ali new album, revolutionary brother, working class activist that put all his working class work into hip hop and reggaeton beats and stuff like that. Check him out. All right, Janaiah.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being on the show. You are a filmmaker, and
Yes.
you also have your own brand.
Yes.
It is pronounced Herrick. You know, let me give you a chance. What is it called?
It's Heritagio. So Heritagio.
Heritagio.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. What is Heritagio about?
Heritagio is about cultural awareness and sensitivity. So I'm an immigrant. I come from an immigrant family. I'm Haitian American, first generation. And so
Shout out to Haiti.
Yeah, big shout out. And so I started Heritagio with the sense that I wanted to share other people's stories, but I didn't want to do it myself. I wanted to give other people the space and the opportunity to share their story themselves the way they see it. I wanted to really highlight the different individual experiences and how, especially because we're in a time when social media is so important and it's vital to our society. And, we have so many newspaper outlets and TV shows and movies coming out, and they're really trying to represent newer stories and other stories that may not necessarily have been represented in the past before, which is amazing. But at the same time, it's still very broad and it could still be better. There is always room for improvement. So it occurred to me that the easiest way to share your story or to get better representation is if we tell other people our stories and we encourage other people to share and we encourage each other. So that's what Heritagio is about. It's a lens and a platform on which anybody can share their story through me. I work with a lot of different people. I have a lot of different content coming out that I'm very, very excited for. And I give them the opportunity to tell their story the way they want to and the way they want to be seen. And it's been a very slow start. But it's been really fun to just learn. And I've spoken to a lot of different people and I've learned a lot of different things I didn't know before starting Heritagio. So I am so thankful for the journey this far.
Now you said it was a slow start. For the audience, for people that are like interested on trying to do what you do, what was the challenges that in the beginning that you had to go through?
Really fear. So I am a bit of a career perfectionist. You know, I don't do something unless I know for a fact that I can do it and that I can do it well. And
Right.
so, you know, while that skill and that mindset is great, because at the same time, you know, it makes you better adept at achieving things, at the same time, it can also make you not pursue certain opportunities because you feel like, okay, I don't think I'm going to be as successful at this, and I don't think I'm going to succeed at this, so I probably shouldn't do it. And so going into my college years as an undergraduate student, I really wanted to just focus on making films that were fictional. I wanted to focus on, you know, I'm a big lover of sci-fi. I'm a big lover of supernatural stuff, and
Mhm.
I really wanted to make films of those kinds. I really wanted to graduate and maybe work for like the CW or for HBO Max and stuff like that and make those kinds of
Mm.
stories. And then as I got deeper into university, because I did a lot of outreach work where I got to meet a lot of different people, and I've heard a lot of really cool stories and just really got to talk to people, and I'm a talker. So it was right up my alley. I realized, you know, maybe I don't necessarily have to make up stories. Maybe there are just so many cool stories that already exist right here. And, you know, I feel like a lot of people they have a little bit of pause about sharing your story because, you know, your story is also your identity. It's like about your upbringing, it's about your family, it's about everything. And I think part of the reason why I wanted to work with people is because I knew for a fact I wasn't going to share a story that wasn't going to be true to the person sharing it. I wanted
Mm.
to make sure that people felt comfortable with the way that they're being represented, or else what is the point?
Right.
And
Right.
so eventually it just kind of evolved. And especially during quarantine, I had a really good time to sit and reflect and think about how I wanted to proceed. Because in the beginning, I was just doing an Instagram blog. It was called The Culture Professor. I would look up fast facts about different cultures because that was something I was really interested in since high school. And I would post them on Instagram. And I mean, a lot of my friends really liked it, but at the same time, it didn't feel authentic to me because it wasn't my culture. I can really only share about the Haitian American experience, and not even that. I can share about my Haitian American experience, but
Right.
to
Right.
go and do research about, you know, the Chinese culture and the Japanese culture, and you know, it's fun from a learner's perspective, but at the same time, I didn't walk in those paths, you know, so I couldn't really offer or lend a true visceral experience. And so I realized if I'm going to do this, I need to partner with other people, and I need to give them basically the microphone and the creative outlet and the creative authorship to be able to actually give an authentic experience and teach somebody something.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful, and I wanna also highlight just how much Haitian culture has influenced American culture in music, arts. You know, not even just New Orleans or Louisiana. Like the jazz scene out there. Everything. There's so much that has been contributed to American society that a lot of people just don't know that Haiti has done. And the revolutionaries and everything.
Yeah.
Um, I, I have educated myself and still am educating myself on Haiti because
Oh, that's
I am.
wonderful.
Oh yes, yes. I read about Louis Vuitton, Jean Jacques Dessalines, everything I can to learn. You know, because it's so important, and my heart goes out to what's going on right now, where Haitian immigrants are trying to come to America for a better life, and they deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And just how the United States and this government is treating them, and Biden is leading and deporting the most Haitian people than any other president has done, and you know it's just it breaks my heart. So I'm so happy that you are here to just tell your story, and not only tell your story but tell others people's stories. Like it's absolutely just amazing.
Thank
And
you.
how so a lot of people that go into film,
Yeah.
I find it interesting that you are able to give um a genuine dialogue that lets these people be able to give out their truth within their stories,
Yeah.
because you see a lot of different polishing on the media and all that stuff. That's not really the case. um is it how did you just automatically knew that's the right way, or was there like a learning experience that made you understand like, oh, I should do it this way instead of that
It's a little bit of both. So
Mm.
for one thing, when I was in school, I took a documentary class in which I actually learned a lot about, because that's what a lot of heritage is when on the creative side of it is documentary, because you interview people and you essentially ask them questions about their lives and their lifestyle. So I learned a lot about specifically making documentaries about other people, and the delicacy with which you have to go forward with that kind of story, because these people are trusting you to tell their story and to tell it truthfully. And there have
Right.
been many instances throughout the filmmaking process and throughout filmmaking history where that's kind of been muddled and even just stomped on by
Mm.
filmmakers, because it's not just about the story, it's also now about profitability, and that
Right.
plays
Right.
a huge factor. But it also was a learning experience for me personally, because like I said, when I started the Instagram blog, I didn't have the hugest following, but at the same time, I also would talk to people, and I would realize that a lot of the facts that I was getting off the internet were facts that anybody could get off the internet. I felt like a lot of it was just like, oh, this is fun, but anybody could Google, why certain people do certain things if they took the time. And I would tell myself, well, not everybody wants to take the time to Google it, and this is why we do it. At the same time, I feel like there was room to go deeper. There was room to really delve into the culture, and there are some things that I might never be able to find on the internet because it's not spoken about on the internet.
Right. Right. I had to put myself on mute real quick because my cat likes to be loud when she uses the bathroom because she wants
Oh,
the world to know for some reason. Um,
my
what
goodness.
an ass. But anyway, yeah, that's really truthful. I love that. I love that a lot because there's a narrative that I've never been to film school, but I've read that there's a narrative that they try to train you in to push.
Mhm.
Um, but it's always good to see people coming out of the box of that, and that's
Of
what's
course.
leading now. Um, like even if it's not Netflix, it's still genuine, and people
Yeah.
always trying to get that Netflix deal now. Like that's like the most big deal apparently right now, and it's like, do you
Yeah.
really need that, man, to validate yourself? Like, you
I
can
mean,
start your own thing, like what you're doing. Start your own thing and just go off of that.
I mean, it's just because there are so many options, as a filmmaker. I mean, think about it. 10 years ago, if you were to say you were going to film school, everybody would think you're going to be broke. And
Mm,
nowadays, it's not, you've been going to film school is not just going to work in Hollywood on a set anymore. It could be, you've got a lot of people making great content on YouTube. You've got a lot
right.
of people working with YouTubers to help create their content, because everybody needs an editor, everybody needs a producer. You've got so many different avenues. I feel like a lot of, and of course, the biggest one is to do a blockbuster. Everybody wants to work for like Marvel Studios or Netflix and put out something really awesome. And I can see why. I mean, Marvel is Marvel, and
Yeah.
Netflix has put out some amazing stories that also I would have never been able to get in touch with myself if I weren't on the platform. So I think there are takeaways from everything. It just depends on what kind of filmmaker you want to be and what kind of
Right.
art you want to make, because it's an art. I mean, to me, it is.
Mm, mm.
When I first came in, I really, really wanted to make like action movies, and I really wanted to do like all of the fictional stuff. And then I never in my wildest dreams thought that documentary work could be as fulfilling as it is, which I think it was. I think it is. And I think there are so many other different types of films that a lot of people don't see unless they're like really looking for it or unless they have a taste for it. So it's you are right. We do go into film school being, I don't even think we're being fed a certain narrative. I feel like in a way we're feeding ourselves that narrative, because you go into film school
Mm,
with a specific impression of the films that you're going to make, which
mm.
if you wanted to make Marvel films, you would go in specifically thinking about only Marvel type films. If you want to do
Right.
documentaries, you would think solely about documentaries. And the good thing about film school is that it's not just about those types of things. You learn about all types of films, and you learn about the history, and you learn about why we do things certain way, and you learn
Right.
to be creative, and you are encouraged to push boundaries. So that's the beauty of it all.
Mm, mm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And do you find yourself hmm, actually, I just lost my question.
It's okay.
What made you wanted to do film? Let's start with that. Like, how did you fill that out? Because, like you said, a lot of people think you're going to be broke when you're a filmmaker. As a
Yes.
as an artist, they're looking at me like, oh yeah, he's broke too. And as an actor, you're like, oh well, unless you don't get to the SAG, then you broke too.
Yeah.
Has have your parents? Because let's just be, black parents, like
Yeah.
any immigrant family, but let's just talk about black parents real quick. They're like, yo, like my dad. Mom, I was lucky enough that they told me, "Oh, you want to do music? Go ahead," because they already had music background. They're pastors and stuff like that. So they're like, "Oh, we
Oh,
can help you with it
nice.
if anything goes wrong or something like that."
Right.
But my cousins and stuff, they're like, no, you're going to do business. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a
Mm-hmm.
lawyer.
Yep.
You're going to
You're
be a
president.
veterinarian,
Yeah.
a president.
Yeah.
Did you have to deal with that? When, like, I guess I need
Definitely.
two questions, basically.
Definitely, but not from my parents. Thankfully,
Oh.
I have two amazing parents who worked very hard to put me in the place where I am, where I can actually not have to be a doctor or a lawyer or Madam
That's
President.
awesome.
So I think most of it came from my extended family, just because, I mean, my mother, even though she came to the United States pretty much not knowing a lot about American culture, and she didn't speak the language at the time she came. She was only 11. She still,
Mm-hmm.
she still learned a lot. And if you spoke to her today, you wouldn't even tell she was Haitian American, because her accent is practically gone. It
Oh.
only comes out when she's like super upset or next to somebody else who
Oh.
happens to be of Haitian descent. Yeah. Yeah. So her accent takes on many different forms.
That's awesome.
But I think my dad is more of a realist, and and a pessimist. So he is the one to be like, what if it doesn't work out? You need to have a backup plan and stuff like that. And I came to appreciate that about him. I still bounce ideas
Mm,
off him to this day, because I'm like, okay, what could possibly go wrong? And then he'll list me at least 5 things that could possibly go wrong. And then I'm like,
right.
okay, at least we know, But my family, especially my aunts, well, they're my great aunts, they're my mother's aunts, but they're practically mine as well, because they helped raise me. They're first generation immigrants themselves. They barely speak the language, and they only know enough about American culture to get by the way they are.
Mm,
We're a family of mainly nurses, or like nurse technicians, because, like you said, you don't
right.
work your way into the United States to be poor. You got to get
Right.
something that's going to make you money. And so
Right.
they
Right.
worked hard, so that way my mother could have all the career she did, and that way I could have my own choice of career. But at the same time, I have cousins who mainly are engineers and work in higher education and stuff like that, because it's guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of them to this day thinks I'm in school for mechanical engineering, because it was just too hard to explain to her that I'm in film school. So don't tell her, please. So it's definitely, I'm thankful that, at least from my parents, I didn't get that, because I feel like if I did, it would have been so much harder, especially because I take a lot of what my parents tell me to heart. My parents are literally my textbook on life. If they didn't do it, I would 50% consider it and then maybe move on.
Mm, mm.
It's
Yeah,
just the way it
yeah,
is.
it's such a big deal. I have a friend who's Jamaican, and she was telling me straight up that it got so bad that they literally like forced her to stop speaking patois, and they try to break the American accent in her, so she doesn't ever try to like sound Jamaican. Like
No.
I just feel so bad, like the way that America treats immigrants is just so sad that they have to like feel
It
they need to do that.
is. And you know what? Even if her parents didn't do that, I feel like on some level you feel like you have to yourself, because I went to predominantly white or white Hispanic schools. And so even if there was a language spoken other than English by my peers, it was usually Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish at the time. And so there was no real relatability, and they'd talk about their culture, and, everybody would be so fascinated. And it was funny. Like I've lived through an evolution of cultural awareness where it used to be like you hid your culture and you kept it solely at home. Like, you don't talk about your food stays at home. Your mother who yells at you stays at home. Everything, all the things that made your culture or your cultural experience the way it is stayed at home. And then when you come outside, crisp American accent, Nikes only, nothing of the sort now is the way it is now, because now everybody wants to know. But now you're kind of forced to commoditize yourself, because now you have to be like, oh, this is why my culture is so cool. We've got the food, we've got the music. Don't look at the fact that a president just died. Don't look at the fact that we had an earthquake. Think about the food, the music. So I feel like even if, and me just relating to her, I feel like even if, if my parents were to tell me to stop speaking Creole, like I even if they didn't do that, I would still feel like there was a pressure to do it myself. There would be a pressure to sound more American in school by myself, because, it's like one of those when in Rome situations.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so deep. That's so deep. Even just me being Black American, when I started going to white schools, I even tried to make sure I didn't speak anything slang like or anything. Cause I love like talking like from the streets and shit like that, because that's where I'm from. The streets and shit. That's what we did. When I got to these white schools, I felt so fucking embarrassed about myself, and then I had to learn to love myself and all this stuff, and it's so hard. You know what I mean? They don't that's why I want to segue into this question about stereotypes that I saw on your like how you're saying we're getting out of these stereotypes. We're not trying to promote these stereotypes. We're showing our genuine selves, who we are embracing our cultures and stuff like that. Because when you go into these white schools, and this is just from my experience, I don't speak for anybody else. When you go into these white schools, one thing that struck me is that they always remind you that you're different. They don't try to
what? It's not even out of malice, right?
Right.
They'll just be like, oh, I love the way you do your hair. Like, I could never do my hair like that. Or they're like, oh, your food is so what is it? It's, and this isn't to discredit white people or people who have lived in the United States for generations, because these questions are perfectly innocent. It's just that it's also an othering that you can't avoid. It's we don't want them to stop asking questions, because we like the interest. We want to make sure we tell them about it. But at the same time, it's also a constant reminder of how different we are. And you're just kind of forced to be like, geez.
And then they tell you, I don't see color, but you always remind me I'm different.
Listen.
That's so real.
Yeah. It's a conundrum for sure. It is one of this. There are so many gray areas in this type of conversation. On the one hand, you're like, if they stop, then what is left to do? We can't ask them to stop, because at the same time, I feel like we're living in a time where, especially because we have a lot of deconstructing of anti-Black hate and the more awareness for the immigrant experience, we also kind of white people are in a sense that they're like, okay, so now I have to be extra sensitive to people who are from different places, and that's good in a sense, because that means they're getting the awareness. But also whether we like it or not, the difference is going to show, because we are different, right? I mean, we were raised completely different.
Exactly. Yeah. And do you feel that right now, since you're in the perfect spot for film for people of color in America, do you think that now is just the time to branch out compared to the past.
Yes.
I don't really know the like
Yes.
would you think skyrocket that? Was it Black Panther? Do you think Black Panther skyrocket that?
I think Black Panther had a hand in it. I
Right.
think there are so many other films that have also helped.
Mhm.
Because remember, before there was Black Panther, there was Coming to America. And
Yes,
that
that was
also
fire.
had its own highlight of African culture, which is great. I think Black Panther went deeper, just in the sense that I feel like a lot of films we've had of Africa in the past have been a generalized Africa or a very, very poor Africa. I think it was very poignant and
Mhm.
very important that they also showed an Africa that can have money, that can have technology, and that could be its own fully functional first world developed kind of country without aid from the UK or the United States or any of those power players, so
Right,
that
right.
and so Black Panther did do a lot, and especially because it's a Marvel movie that pushed it. But at the same time, I feel like there have been little bits and pieces, but now we're definitely starting to get to a point where we're like full speed ahead. I mean, I'm still waiting for some more Haitian stories. I would love a Haitian
Mm,
Disney princess
yes.
personally, but
Yes.
I definitely think that we're at a good place to start really getting creative. The person who directed Black Panther was not even of African descent directly. He was African American, and he still was able to tell that story in a way
Mm,
that felt authentic. Most of the cast
right.
was not of African descent directly. They were African American, but they still did their research.
Mm,
They still did an accent coach. They still had the costumes, and the love and respect is what will propel the movies forward. It's not whether or not we just tell the story. It's about the love and respect we put towards it. So
right, right.
so yeah, I think Black Panther was a big power player, but I think at the same time, we also have to remember there are so many others. I mean, they're even just having more people of color in films, like to get away from just African Americans for a second. I mean, think about Crazy Rich Asians and To All the Boys
Yeah,
I've
that
Loved
show.
Before.
Right.
Yeah, To All the Boys I've Loved Before was supposed to be a white actress. They decided to go with an Asian actress instead, and it did so commercially well. So I think making those choices are already putting us forward. But at the same time, still want a Disney princess from Haiti. Still want, still want it. Still
Wait,
waiting for it.
wasn't the Princess Frog a Haitian princess?
No.
Well, no, she wasn't actually. They just had like to show
So,
some
like
New
you said,
Orleans
yeah,
vibes.
so
That's
New
it,
Orleans has
yeah.
Haitian roots, but I feel like
Right,
that would be a slap in the face to the actual Louisiana Creole culture to say that, oh,
right.
she's Haitian because she's from
They're
Louisiana.
right.
So I think that
Yeah.
should be able to stand on its own. And don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, I still love The Princess and the Frog. It's just that I feel like now we need to start delving deeper and we can go
Mm,
forward. I mean, we can have an African princess, we could have a Haitian princess, we could have a Japanese princess, we could have so many different ones. To me, the Disney princesses were my favorite movies growing up because I just loved what they stood for. I loved the characters. I loved that they stood for kindness and patience. And, of course, I'm a musical nerd, so I also love the music, but
right.
it was about the qualities that they represent. And even though,
Mulan was a badass.
yeah,
Yeah, she was a
exactly.
badass.
And even though I didn't understand the construct that race is growing up, and
Right.
especially because it wasn't something that was outright taught to me very early on. I was still able to find a relatability and a bond to these characters, but I also think being able to see yourself like physically can also be great. And there's a sense of pride you feel when your country is
Yeah.
represented on the screen. When Coco came out, I mean, that was huge because nobody really knew much about El Dia de los Muertos in the past.
Right.
Now we have Coco. Now we know. Maybe we don't know about the spiritual world. I don't think that part could be up to pass. We won't know that until
Mhm.
until we bite the
Until we
dust.
go. Yep.
But at the same time, we learned about the different parts of it. The orange flower petals, the
Mm.
ofrendas, all those things, all those nuances propelled and got people interested in Mexican culture, and that's such a huge part of Mexican culture is that
Yeah.
holiday. So
Yeah.
it's so vital, and I hope we can continue to improve.
That film made me cry.
That film is so great.
I was just like, me and my girlfriend were just boo-hooing, like,
Yeah, especially in the song where he sings "Remember Me."
yes. It's like, why they doing this? Why they trying to grab tears right now?
Because it's Pixar. Pixar is so good at that. I feel like there is such a stark difference between Disney movies and Pixar now. Because Pixar, like, they're like going for your heartstrings. They are exposing your triggers. They are
Right,
exposing your traumas, and they are putting it on screen for you to see. And they know
right,
that you will come back for more.
right. It's so beautiful. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful. And now they have something else coming out
Oh
this
yeah,
Wednesday.
Encanto, right?
Yeah.
The I'm gonna see that. I think I'm gonna see that. I have to see when. There's no time in the holiday season.
No, there really isn't.
There.
Well, I just found out that the day after Thanksgiving is another indigenous holiday for Native Americans.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, I just found out about that. I was
What
like, yeah,
holiday is that? Is it, wait, it's not Indigenous Peoples Day, right? Because I thought that was
no,
when
it's
Columbus
just
was
Native American History Day, and
Oh,
apparently this month is Native American
oh,
history.
I knew that. I didn't know there was going
Yeah,
to be an entire day as well because I knew that they had the month, which was good because
right.
the whole history with that. It's a little, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know that the holiday was this Friday. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do Haitian people consider themselves indigenous?
Um, I if we think about technicalities, I would say no, just because indigenous means they were there the entire time. So, for example,
Hmm.
Native Americans, they were here long before people
Right.
started settling in the United States, right? So, I
Right.
think the only real indigenous people would be the ones who identify within the Taino,
Hmm.
which is for the entire island. So that would be Haiti and Dominican Republic. Those
Yeah.
that part they would be considered indigenous, but the rest of us we're just melting pots. The rest of us, maybe if you have a little bit of blood in you, but I think really we're
Like a
just
little bit of Taino blood in you.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe just a little bit, but I don't think enough to go full fledged, So I
Right.
don't think that would be considered indigenous.
Right. Are you familiar with are you familiar with like the relationship between the Dominican Republic and Haiti? Like, do you know if that bond is any way closer to getting better? Because what I see from like the Dominican government, they just say such asinine things about Haitian people. Like they even use ape references for certain things. Like, what's going
So
on with that? Like y'all literally are on one island.
So this goes back to way when Haiti kicked out the French and they got their
Like, so
independence.
saying
And
domain.
so we were riding high on the victory train. And
Right.
so a lot of the bad blood between Dominicans and Haitians is the fact that in the olden times, they tried to domesticate basically the mulattoes, which were the Dominicans of that time, and they would make them work for them and they would overwork them, and even to the like I would even go as far as to say it was in enslavement. And so when
Mhm.
they finally broke off and created their own republic, I think that's what started the huge discourse between Haiti and the Dominican Republic, was because it's just like, I'm not going to say it's just like, but it's a lot like how African Americans see a lot of white Americans now. You never forget generationally what a group of people did to your group of people, and it's
Mhm.
unfortunate, but that stuff is taught.
Right,
You are
right, right.
taught to be on your guard for these specific people because you remember, or your grandmother remembers, or your grandmother remembers that her mother had experienced something at the hands of those types of people. So there's a fear and there's a resentment. And now I think it also has to do with the fact that Haiti is a black country. We're a
The
Latino
first black
country.
country,
Yeah, yes,
first
but
independent.
we are black nonetheless. We can't change that about ourselves, and we still, there's still a lot of parts of Haitian culture that come from its African roots. And I think
Right.
a lot of the hate towards them is rooted in the fact that there are still some anti-black tendencies. There's still a
Mm,
connotation with African, with poor, and all these other negative qualities that
mm,
are simply not even true. And I don't fault Dominicans for it. I meet tons of Dominicans and I'll say I'm Haitian and they'll be like, oh my gosh, we're neighbors. And I'll just be like, yeah, you know, they're like, I've never.
But that shows that there's some healing, there's some groundbreaking.
Yeah, you know, and that's fine. I mean, that's how you relate to people. I think if there's going to be any hate, of course, it would be on the governmental level because, you know, the government is the mouthpiece of a nation. You know, it's just like how Biden is the mouthpiece for the United States. I've told people for the last 5 years, a country is only as good as the government that represents them. So if a government has certain qualities, people are going to see the rest of the country with those types of qualities. And with that being said, because I think that's why we have so much bad blood, and I wish it weren't the case, because you're right, it is one island, but at the same time, it's an island with a lot of history. And, you know, I'm not going to shield people from the fact that, you know, Haiti probably shouldn't have enslaved those people. You know, they should have. I mean, think about it. You were just enslaved yourself, and then you turn around and you do this to other people. It's like, it's very hypocritical. So I'm not going to shield people from the negative view of that. But I'm also not going to go and say that we deserve the hate either, because that's not true. No hate.
Right. There is so much there's so much effort. I think this is going to go on for about another 400 years. So many efforts to decolonize our mind, because we have literally all, as a group, when the settlers came here, we just been traumatized, and now it's generational trauma, and it's to the point that we're against ourselves. Like you said, like when they were still slaves, but it was like the way Louverture wrote it, like they weren't slaves, they were kind of like workers, but they still were treated like slaves.
Yeah,
so it's so weird. Yeah, it's like that's all he knew, and because of that, now we have a totally different type of trauma that goes on in that region because of what he did. That's interesting. Very interesting. I'm all being a scholar a little bit. I suck. I suck at scholars.
Oh, stop.
I am not. Well, this is freaking dope. All right, so okay. Sorry, I have 1,000 things going on through my head today. I'm all the way up. I haven't had my coffee yet. So what are some projects that we can look out for you that you have out right now, before we go into anything that you're about to do in the future?
So right now, my focus is really on editagio and just putting out content. So the holiday season, I'm really excited for, because I've been doing some things with some people I know, and they've been willing to share their stories with me. So I'm going to be in the editing room for a little bit, putting that out, and I'm very excited for that. And I hope that really kicks off in the new year. And I do want to put this out, you know, if anybody out there has a story to share, you know, whether it's how a stereotype has affected you or affected how you viewed yourself, whether it's about a specific holiday within your culture or the food, or why you follow certain customs or things, I would love to talk to you. I always have a conversation first and then do a content second, because if I don't know about it, I want to hear from you first, and then we can find ways to really incorporate that into something beautiful. It doesn't have to be like a film. I went to an art school, and I was surrounded by so many different types of artists, and I have learned so many different types of things. I feel like as long as you have a creative outlet, I won't harass you about it. We'll find something. We'll find something for you.
So do you have any like big projects that are coming out in the future? Or
no, I'm really focused on graduating. Apart from
I thought you already graduated.
No, I am still here. I am still in this undergraduate boat. So I am.
Oh, got you. What school do you go to?
I go to the University of Central Florida.
Nice. Okay, got you.
Go Knights. So
you're down near where the Cuban aggression is, and you're in the hotbed of all that.
I mean, I want to make something clear. Central Florida is predominantly Puerto Rican. And anybody who lives in Central Florida will agree, it's little Puerto Rico out here. We do have other ethnicities from the Hispanic community. However, predominantly it's Puerto Rican. I think as you get further down south, you start seeing more Cubans. And that's not to say that Puerto Ricans are down south as well. It's just like the kind of atmosphere you're in. It just depends.
Right.
So, you know, so
Oh,
little
so you're not
in
you're
Miami.
not around that. You're
Yeah,
not around that
down in
craziness.
Miami
Okay.
with little Haiti, little Puerto Rico's over here where I'm at in Central Florida, and then in North Florida you've got the South.
Mm,
Yeah.
the South.
The South.
There's so many cities in Florida. It just starts to feel weird when you just remind yourself it's the South, because there's so many damn cities like Tallahassee, Miami. It's
Very
Tallahassee in
different
Florida.
cultures too. Like Miami is so different than up here.
Orlando.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually dope. That's dope. I didn't know that there was a mini Puerto Rico. Like where I grew up at in Bridgeport, it was like a mixture of a lot of Puerto Ricans and black people. So
Yeah.
like I grew up around that. Yeah.
Especially because of Hurricane Irma. Like my parents live in Kissimmee, so that's usually where I've seen the most Puerto Ricans, and I've grown up alongside them. Is because like after Hurricane Irma and you know how it really affected Puerto Rico, a lot of people moved here, and so that really upped the population as well. And that's why, I mean, it's not even broadly it's called Little Puerto Rico. It's more like an inside joke I have with all my Puerto Rican friends. So everywhere you go, everybody needs to speak Spanish. Even when I used to work at a Great Clips, and you know, I would have people come in. I don't cut hair. I just want to preface with that. I was the one booking the appointments and answering the phone, and people would come in and then they would like not speak a lick of English, and I was just like, this is my life now. This is life now, which is great. I learned Spanish, but it's fine. You know, it's just what it is.
Yeah, that's absolutely dope. Right, I have to let you go now because I got another person I have to interview.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on and stuff and hear your film perspectives and things. Well, actually, I would love to hear your perspective on what just happened with Alec Baldwin, the Rust. Do you have any ideas on that? Because I had a SAG actor on that was talking about how they literally fired people that were union and they put right to work people in that wasn't as efficient with the props.
So there's some moving parts, and I do think he was hitting it on the nail, your friend there, because with a lot of the job insecurity we have in the country right now, a lot of people are losing their jobs that are unionizing, because think about it, SAG-AFTRA is supposed to protect people on set, and not even just SAG-AFTRA, but also unions for crew members, directors, everybody above and below the line. There is a union for them, and they protect them, and they protect their rights to certain work privileges like pay rates and breaks and things like that. So eventually, if it becomes too costly, because remember, film is not just about the story, it's about profitability. If it becomes too costly to afford certain things to certain people, they will sooner let you go than try and accommodate, which is why I think he might have said that they could have been fired and other people could have been given those jobs instead, because they'll work for basically nothing. And you know, and that's upsetting, because yes, everybody needs a job, but you are entitled to work to fair pay wages and working with breaks and paid time off. You know, these are things that should be afforded to you when you work in this country.
Right.
But with that entire debacle, I mean, it was a disaster from head to toe. And not only because of the tragedy of the fact that somebody lost their life, but also the fact that even there were things that even I didn't know. Like, I did not know prop guns had blank bullets in them. My boyfriend told me that. Yeah.
I didn't know that neither.
I didn't know. And so I always thought when they fire it, it was just like CGI or they had something else in there. But I didn't know something could actually fire and hit somebody. And then on top of that, there were so many I don't know why that they have to use real prop guns in the first place, because I legit did think that it was CGI, but also the fact that, you know, if somebody there's usually a prop master or somebody handling the props. So the fact that there was a bit of negligence there and somebody lost their life as a result is the most heartbreaking thing, because film sets are incredibly organized, especially if it's one with a Baldwin on it. You know, the Baldwins have been here for literally years. They are a Hollywood dynasty. So the fact that there would be a film set on which one of the Baldwins, one of the most well-known Baldwins at that, is on the set and they're not taking the extra precautions is a huge sign of negligence, one. And two, it's also just incredibly tragic. At first, I thought it was an accident, and then I was like, there has got to be more to the story. And I think the worst part about it is that now we're getting more details, and now we're realizing, no, it wasn't just an accident. Like something really did have to happen. Some things really did have to happen in order for this to take place, you know?
Right. So, you know, I'm looking at I'm not looking at the production crew for the sakes, even though they have hired inexperienced people, but I'm looking also at like the whole the company itself, the film company, the ones that have millions of dollars and the people that own them, but they feel that they want to do shortcuts all the time instead of just doing it the right way.
And it's because people let them.
Right.
People let them. And and it would be the same in any industry. Any big Fortune 500 company is going to take shortcuts because they're going to look for ways to save money. And as long as nobody is telling on them, and as long as they're finding ways to keep people in check, they can do essentially whatever they want. And so it's very sad. You know, there is no real accountability for any of these people. And it feels like the minute you get to big company status, there is a bit of you should be working harder to keep yourself, you know, accountable because you have more employees, you have more things to your name now. Right.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on. That was an awesome perspective. And I hope that people see and get some education on that as well too, because that's what we need. We need to learn more about these things. You know?
Exactly. Take the time. 5 minutes of your time could teach you so many things.
Right. Well, I hope you have a very good day out there in sunny Florida. You know,
thank you.
Wear your mask, or I don't know. If you don't or not, some people don't want to.
Orlando does. We wear masks here. I can't say city in Central Florida, but Orlando, we wear masks here.
Word. Have a very nice day. Thank you so much for coming on. And everybody on the podcast world, thank you so much for listening. Let's keep in touch.
All right.
Happy holidays. Bye.
Collectively transforming community, peace in our human family, volume in unity, divine light shining individually, collectively transforming community, peace in our human family.
Growth as above, so below. Feel the pain in my soul, the red pill dissolved. Organized, no matter the cost. Politicians start wars, they don't fight, they send the poor. And nothing lasts forever as long as we stay together. Give hell to the masses, watch the unity rapture. This is for the kids and the culture. It's one love, one growth, one light warrior.